right, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to the final DevCon session round. I'm glad you could join me. I'm actually super stoked to see so many of you here. I was expecting maybe about 20 people, a sleepy-eyed crowd, but it looks like everybody is still up and about and enjoying DevCon, so I'm happy that I'm here to kind of wrap things up for you. So this session is branding your own FileMaker admin console, SHA09. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about myself. So I'm a certified FileMaker developer, 11 through 18. I just took the 18 test from home. It was an interesting experience. You can read my blog about it sometime later. I don't know if I'm going to do it again. I think I prefer the testing center. At Mainspring Inc., which is a platinum partner of Claris and FileMaker, I'm a team leader, so I have many roles under that name, such as senior developer, project manager, QA tester, trainer, product manager. So I wear a lot of hats, but team leader is the title. I'm a full stack developer, and what that means is I code both back-end and front-end design systems. Aside from Claris FileMaker, I also work heavily on the Laravel platform, which is a PHP framework, Vue.js, JavaScript front-end, and also some other CMS packages such as WordPress and Drupal. A lot of you I've had the pleasure of meeting through the community as a contributor. I'm on the FileMaker Community MVP team. I was also the recipient of the FileMaker Community Excellence Award twice here at DevCon. I have those sitting behind my desk on a little tiny shelf. And one last little fun fact about me is I play tenor sax and also alto sax in a rock and blues band. So whenever I get a spare time, I like to play out. So let's talk about the goals of this session. The first thing we're going to start off with is the part that's probably going to put a couple people to sleep, the business concept side of things. Why should you care about using the admin API? What benefit will it have in your business environment for using the admin API? After that, we're going to do a retrospective view of what the admin API is, how it operates, how it actually interacts with the server, the call cycle, and we're going to do some examples using Postman. Then we're going to move on to real-world applications, where I'm going to show you a gallery of packages and existing solutions that you can download and use immediately today with the admin API, with very little setup required. I'm going to show you a little bit of what we're doing in development at Mainspring to manage our multi-tenant hosting. And then once we're done with that, we're going to have resources for you to download, and I'll let you know what's going to be in the session materials that you can download later when I get that up to date. To keep everybody awake as well, sometime in the middle of this, we're going to play a little game. So you have the opportunity to win a fabulous prize, which I won't tell you what it is until you win. All right, so let's start off with the business concepts of things. The first business concept I want to instill about the admin API is how much value it adds to your business. Now, when you're thinking about business, time is money. That's essentially what it boils down to. So if you have one server that you're managing, and it takes you 1 hour per month to manage that server, it's maybe not a big deal to think about automating processes through the admin API. But if you multiply that to where you're now managing 50 servers a month, and each one of those servers takes an hour worth of work per month, now you're talking about an entire week of time plus 10 hours of lost productivity. That's time that could be billed somewhere else. It's time that maybe you're billing your clients for, or maybe you're not. Maybe you included updates in your hosting plan. So for us, when we're doing something like a hosting plan, we're looking to do things the most efficient way possible so we can copy and paste that and then use that across all aspects of our hosting business. So the value that the admin API brings to you as a business person is essentially in time savings. It allows you to automate your processes, and it allows you to have a step up over your competitors that might not be able to keep up with your pace of doing business. So if you can say that your hosting plan is cheaper because you have your entire maintenance automated, then you might have an advantage over a competitor that's at the same price but doesn't have the same features that you have. The next business concept I want to talk about is responsibility. Using the admin API allows you to open up responsibilities to your clients as well as you for the servers that you manage. So let's say that you are working with a large company and they have their own IT department. And traditionally, you've struggled to work back and forth with this IT department to get servers started, to get access to servers remotely, so that you can perform your basic FileMaker server maintenance tasks. With the admin API, it's set it up once and then administer from anywhere. So you don't have to have the RDP access or the VPN access anymore as long as you have the API access. And you're able to perform your daily maintenance tasks, disconnecting users, disconnecting hung sessions, that type of thing. So aside from that responsibility, you can also delegate responsibility to that IT department as well. So if you have a system administrator that works there or an IT help desk that works there, you can now create a console that they can go to and they can perform those maintenance tasks before they reach out to you. So that goes back to the value-adding part of this, where you can bring value to your clients by allowing them to use their existing IT infrastructure to manage their servers. They no longer need to wait for you to respond, especially when you're stuck at DevCon and you're not answering your email and your server's down and it's Monday at 4 p.m. Yeah, I already had one this week. It happens. But this allows you to automate that process and expose that process so IT people can perform those tasks for you. A great thing about admin APIs in general, everything you've seen here this week about APIs is that it's built on reusable bits. So I can take an admin console file, like a .fmp12 file, like the ones I'll show you later, and I can copy and paste it to all my FileMaker servers. Then I can give access to that file to each individual client so that they can all log in and manage their own servers. So the ability to generate reusable systems using the admin API is that it goes back again to the value adding. Reusable means you're saving time is saving money. Saving money is bringing value. And the last thing I want to cover in business concepts is that it's modular. So by modular, I mean not just that it's modular in the reusable sense that you can copy it from one place and paste it somewhere else, but modular in this sense means that you can break it up into individual functionality. So let's go back to the IT department example. You can develop a module specifically for IT administrators that only gives them a Spartan amount of access, a small amount of access to the overall functions allowed in the admin API. Let's say you only want to give them an interface where they can log in and disconnect users. You can do that in a modular sense with the admin API. Whereas if you were granting them access to the entire FileMaker admin console, they would have access to the entire feature set of that console. So the ability to break roles out into smaller modules, again, works its way back up this business concept chain where it brings value to your business. Now, one other thing I'd like to mention, because I know some of you in here are in-house developers or you're vertical market resellers. All of these business concepts apply to you as well. As an in-house FileMaker developer, your client is the company you work for. So all of this value you can bring to your client, to your business. You can make your life easier. You don't have to tell your managers that you built this awesome system that automates your things where you can click on one thing and it does its thing, and you can save yourself 45 minutes to browse around on Facebook. That's fine. So you're bringing yourself value in that situation. But, you know, it does stand out. It excels you to a problem solver attitude that you're bringing these solutions to your client, which is your in-house. All right. Keep switching between the keyboard and the mouse thing they've got here. That was the business. We're already at the game part. So we're going to take a stretch break here. Bear with me. It's the last session of the day. We're trying new and interesting stuff out. So we're going to play a game. Maybe. All right, you guys are seeing that, right? All right, so this is a game called high-low. And high-low means that you're going to pick a number, 1 through 50. This is on the honor system, everybody. So pick a number in your head, 1 through 50. And when I roll, it's going to give you a number between 1 and 50, and it's going to tell you if it's high or low. So if I pick 32, and the number is 25 and it's high, that means my number 32 is higher than 25, so I win. So winners get to stay standing, and if you lose the round, sit down. And then we'll repeat until we have one person left. Sound like a plan? If you don't want to participate, you can sit down. I'm not going to make you stand up, but everybody else, let's stand up, stretch a little bit. It's the last end of the day here. Awesome, so much. I love crowd participation. Thanks, guys. So again, pick a number in your head. I'm going to roll here. Pick a number between 1 to 50. Hold that in your head. I'm going to roll. All right. This is 8, and it's low. That means if you are 8 or below, you stay standing. If you chose a number higher than 8, sit down. Stretch break's over pretty quick, guys. All right. So we're going to repeat the same process again. So get a number in your head, 1 through 50, and we're going to roll again. Everybody good? All right. Roll. 21, high. So if you chose a number 21 or higher, stay standing. 1, 2, 3. All right, we're at 3. All right. Everybody get it? The 3 of you left? I can keep rolling? All right. So. Got it? All right. Get that number 1 through 50. All right, ready? Rolling. 3, high. So everybody choose a number higher than 3? Yep. All right, let's go again. 44, high. Oh, all right. You won. So at the end of the session, come on up and claim your wonderful prize, which is an original Mike Burgee spin art from the party last night. Yes. But also, I've got something else for you as well. So thank you for stretching with me. This file, by the way, with the instructions in the README will be in the session file, so you can play this with your local user group as well. But it makes a great little stretch break there. And maybe I can quit out of that. All right, so back to slides here. Thanks for bearing with me. I like to have a little bit of fun. What can I say? All right, so let's talk about the FileMaker admin API itself, how it works, and how you use it, like the general life cycle. So it works as any other API, REST API works. It's built on a set of standard calls where you make a request to the server processes that request and returns to you a result. It does that action on the server and returns to you the result. So this image is out of the FileMaker admin API documentation. It shows the life cycle of this. So what you do is you start with a REST API client. It can be Postman, it can be FileMaker, it can be PHP, it can be JavaScript, it can be anything that can consume a REST API. So you're going to make that request to the web server. The web server address, yourdomain.something.com, where your FileMaker server is sitting, hopefully with an SSL certificate available to the outside world. The web server is going to make that request through the admin API layer. And then that's going to make the action request to the database server itself. So when the database server is done running that action, that flow reverses. The database server passes the result back up to the admin API layer. That passes the result back up to the web server. And the web server handles the HTTP response back to the REST API client. So it's one continuous cycle. And it's the same for all of the calls using the admin API. So as long as you can set up one call successfully, chances are you'll be able to set up all of the REST API calls successfully. So one consideration is that you have to enable the admin API. You have to turn it on. You have to grant access to it. It uses, to authenticate, it uses your username and password for the admin console. So you want to be careful for handing that out. In our case, what we're doing is we're storing those credentials in fields in a file that is encrypted at rest. And then the FileMaker files to access that file are done through OAuth in our case, so that our staff at Mainspring can manage that file. Some other considerations are that the server has to be online. So if the server, for some reason, if the admin API engine or the web server is frozen and you're not able to access the server, you will still need to have some sort of access to that. If you're on a cloud machine, maybe you have to go into the AWS console at that point and restart your instance. Or if you're on an on-premises server, you might have to go and log into that server directly to figure out what's wrong. So it's not going to be able to take every single admin task that you need to do. Because, again, if communication is broken, if either that web server or the admin API engine is broken, then you're going to have to still do maintenance. So it's not a cure-all for everything. But I think very much that you can do 90% or more of all of your administrative tasks with the admin API today. The advantages of dealing with the admin API is that it's an API. It's abstracted to a language and a methodology that the rest of the world outside of Claris and FileMaker understands. So you can give them the documentation, you can give them the API documentation and their credentials, and you can hand that off to somebody that's familiar with developing REST APIs, and they can administer the FileMaker server. Where if you were to give an IT person direct access via RDP, they would have to know how to pull up the admin console, how to log into that, and then where to go in the admin console to do those actions. So this mitigates, it takes away the training that is required in order to administer the server. And then a little bit on the future. We've all seen what's in the future in terms of Claris Connect this week. I don't have an answer that I can give about the admin API integration with Claris Connect, but I do know that since Claris Connect is able to deal with APIs, that it's highly likely that at some point of time, either somebody in the community or Claris themselves will develop some connectability between Claris Connect and FileMaker server. That would be great because it would allow us to do things like build a flow where we can trigger a script on the server to run independent of FileMaker itself, independent of other FileMaker files. It would allow us to disconnect users at a specific time. It would allow us to abstract basically all of that work outside of living on the server itself so that it can be integrated with other systems. So I'm going to switch back over to my computer over here, which keeps going to sleep, so let me wake it up. It's like me at the last session, always going to sleep. And we're going to take a look at Postman with a real-world result. So I'll zoom in on this for you. Everybody able to see? I need to have this sidebar here so I can show you. So in the session materials, there is a set of files and a link to a Postman collection, and that will give you all of these pre-made calls. This is the entire admin API represented as Postman calls. This was put together by Joshua Willing, and it's available open source on GitHub. So this has everything broken down by its category: authentication, the database server, working with databases, working with clients, users that are connected, working with schedules, PHP settings, XML, ODBC, FileMaker data API things, and the web publishing engine. So there's a lot that you can do with the admin API. You know, this was thought out pretty well when they developed it. 17 was the trial, so make sure that if you're using a 17 server right now, upgrade to 18 as soon as you can, because that trial is ending soon, I think next month. So you're going to want to update to 18 so you can continue to use the admin API. But they did kind of that version 1, version 2 thing between 17 and 18, where 18 had the full feature set of dealing with these things. So the first part in using the admin API, of course, is authenticating. So when you're doing API authentication, there's a couple different ways to do it. Maybe you're going to do it with an access token that you were given, or you're going to do basic authentication with a username and password. In this case, it's a username and password. So in the settings for this authorization request, you see there's terminology over here for what type of curl request you're going to use: post request, delete request, get request, and patch request. So you've probably seen that around in other sessions about how to use APIs, the difference between those verbs. I'm not going to go into those too much. But post means I'm sending form data in, like a login form. So in this case, I'm going to send my username and password to request an access token. And what that does is it authenticates me with the server, and it gives me a temporary access token that will work for about 15 minutes. 15 minutes from the last request. So each request I make will reset that timer to 15 minutes. So if I keep making requests, it'll stay active. If not, I'll have to authenticate again. But what that lets me do is keep that extra layer of security in dealing with my server, because if somebody was to get my access token, I know that it would expire shortly. So there's a very limited amount of security risk involved with getting a token back. So in Josh's files, he's used in Postman. Did anybody here go to John Renfrew's session? Ring a Postman, ring twice for the Postman? All right. So I'm not sure if he covered variables, but you can use variables in Postman in your collections to inject like your server address. So I've set up my server already as a variable in here. This is our actual mainspring development server. And you can see over here, I've got basic authentication, and I've got username and password. Username is in here as a variable of username. The password is the variable for password. So I have those stored as variables there. So it'll let me actually preview a request. I can get the code for that request here. Now I'm probably gonna have to, so this takes care of like automatically encoding that for me. So I can give that curl example here to somebody, a web developer that's building a system for me, and tell them like, this is what your curl request for requesting a token should look like. It pre-does that code for me, and that's what makes Postman a really great environment. So I'm actually going to send this right now. I'm a big fan of doing live demos, so we're going to see what we get back. So down here is our response for what we get back, and you can see it gives us a response of a token. So this token is what we're going to use for each subsequent API request to be able to pull information. So when I ask for a list of databases, I'm going to send my token as my authentication, and FileMaker will say, Yes, that is a good authorized user. Here is a list of the databases. And then these other messages in here are code 0 for no error and text is okay. So you can use those in web applications as well to test to make sure that the token came back properly. So aside from a request access token, you can also invalidate your access token. So if you want to build a lifecycle where you do the request, then you do an action, and then you destroy the token, you can do that all as 3 steps. And then that way, you don't have to worry about waiting for that 15 minutes for your token to expire. You can blow it away. All right, so I'm going to get my server status here. This is, again, it's a specific URL. So each one of these has its own URL structure here, FMI, admin, /API/v2/server/status. The documentation covers all this, but this library is a great way to get them out as well. So I'm going to send that now. I didn't update my token in my settings, so I should probably do that first. Let me copy this out of here. So I'm going to copy this token. I'm going to go in here to edit this, go to my variables. Please don't copy down my password. I'm going to change it anyways. All right. And now that I've updated that, I should be able to send this. All right. So this is a get server status. So I get a response back that says it's running. And again, the same message as code 0, it's okay. If I can go to get security settings, send this. So once I authenticate and put my token in there, now I can go and run all these Postman things. Postman will actually let me chain all of these actions together. So I could technically do a Postman action that authenticated, saved that token for me, and then ran every single test in here and checked the result of that came back. So I could do a one-click kind of health check for my server using Postman. Require secure DB is true. That means that I know users have to log in to see my database list. Here's some other information about my server in here. You know, I can get a list of databases that are there. I can get a list of clients that are connected. Right now, I don't have any clients connected. So using this Postman collection, you can download Postman for free today, download this today. Within the next 5 minutes, type in your server credentials and be off to the races using the admin API. These are real time. I don't have any recordings. This is communicating with a live FileMaker 18.0.2 server that is currently running with our cloud provider. So that's generally how you use the admin API. All right. I'm going to have time for questions at the end of this. We're doing pretty good on time, actually. So next, what I want to talk about are those real-world applications. So in this section, which is pretty much going to take us through the end, I'm going to get into the, well, actually, I already did that first demo, didn't I? Demonstration of a simple REST API request to FileMaker server. But I'm going to show you it from FileMaker instead, from a FileMaker file that we use. After that, I'm going to show you how we took a community file and turned it into our own multi-tenant server management platform. From there, I'm going to show you our next level, what our next thing at Mainspring is for our roadmap for building on the admin API. And then after that, I have a nice slideshow to talk about of inspiration for free resources that you can actually go and download today as well and use for yourself, aside from the one that I'm about to show you. All right, that was a very fast switch. I love the video switch thing. So smoothly transitions between these two laptops. It's great. All right, so I am going to go in here, open up FileMaker. And we are going to do server admin tool. All right, so this is what we use at Mainspring today. The customer names have been, of course, scrambled here. I'm using mock fake data here so that nobody gleans our client list off of us. But basically, what I started off with was a file that was made by Mike Duncan from Soliant. So this is this file right here that you see, this single interface right here for server management is something you can go download for free from Soliant's blog post about it. If you just search for Mike Duncan admin console, or there's a link that will be in the session materials to this, you can go download this, type in your authentication here, and then basically get all of these same statuses. Now you see, this looks very familiar, right? It's using the same API calls, but these are coming back in FileMaker. So here's my cache size, my max files. So it's getting the same information. It's just using FileMaker to parse that out into actual fields so I can deal with it in a language that I'm familiar with, in that FileMaker language. So what we did is we looked at this and said, well, this is great. It's got everything already set up for us, all the API calls taken care of. Thank you, Mike Duncan. You've done 90% of the work for us. So what we wanted to do is add our customer layer on top of this. So our next step was to kind of brand this a little bit for ourselves for the use at Mainspring, and that's what you saw back here on the customer page. So this is kind of, we're using the portal tools, the concept portal tools to kind of have this click-driven interface where we can select a client, click through to their server, see a list of their files, click through to that file, see a list of users that are connected. There's nothing really special to this at all. It's all in FileMaker. It's all stuff that you can set up very quickly. But what makes it easy for us is for the many servers that we manage, we now have one place where we can go. We log in with OAuth, so normally when we open our computer, we don't have to authenticate. It takes us in. We can find the client very quickly. We can click on them. We can click on the server. We can go in and manage that server. So like we can pull up our list of things, and we can do our admin tasks that we need to do. So this has saved us so much time. And not only does it save us time, but we no longer have to train our junior developers who are right now manning the office, because I'm here speaking to you, to be able to do some of these 90% administrative tasks, because they have access to log in, go to the client. So now I can forward an email to them saying, hey, can you check on this server? I think a session is hung up. They can go in here, go to the clients tab, see who's connected, disconnect that session from there. And I don't have to train them how to use RDP. I don't have to give them access to the password vault to be able to go in and do that. So where do you go from here? Well, the obvious step is that you want to start breaking this up and giving your clients access to this so they can do their own administrative tasks. So what we've done is we've gone back just to Mike Duncan's original solution, where you can manage a single server in this one interface. And we've taken this file and we host it directly on that client server. And we set it up for them there. And anything we want to give them access to, we leave. Anything we don't want them to have access to, we just delete. Just delete it off the layout, or set up a quick privilege set that only has access to run specific scripts. But once we set that up for them, which is a 5-minute process, we've brought that value to them, and we've allowed them to get value out of their business as well. And everybody's happy. Everybody we've set it up so far has been, this is great. It's not confusing. It's very easy to use. And life goes on. We add more people, and it's completely scalable. So if we have 40 clients today, or if we have 140 clients next year, our response time will be the same. Our ability to move quickly and administer our servers will be the same, all because this is a flexible API architecture. So the next thing I'd like to show you is where we're going with our next generation. And our next generation is taking the admin API outside of the FileMaker platform itself. This is great and all if you have a admin console, but what do you do when your FileMaker server goes down, when you lose that connectivity? Do you have a place where your clients can go where they can see that your server is not responding and offline? You know, how can you have your clients do a little bit of troubleshooting for you to figure out what's wrong before they contact you? And the answer is you build a web application. So this is a small preview. Was anybody here in the CWP user group on Monday? All right, good. Then this will be a surprise for you. We started building this last week. This is built on a platform called Laravel Nova, which is, if you're familiar with FM Better Forms, it's kind of like FM Better Forms for Laravel. It allows us to build our schema in JSON files, and then it will create a web application for us. But very quickly, using those tools, we were able to build this admin console. And in here, I have the same level of resources. Security built in, times out, logs me out automatically. So I can go to customers, see my customers in here. I can go to a view here, see the servers that are attached to that. You know, go into that server, view the details, and eventually what we're going to have here too is, you know, roles and permissions built in, activity logging so that we can log when something was updated or changed. So not only do we have the FileMaker tools at this point, but now we have a virtually unlimited amount of functionality that we can build in for other administrative functions as well. So we can put an action in here that checks for the server, sees if it's online, and if it's online, we can set off an entire chain of actions based on that. We can post a message to our Slack channel with an urgent response flag. We can send emails and SMS text alerts. We can even, hopefully soon, use Claris Connect to run a flow of actions. So this is really next level. We're looking forward to deploying this sometime within the next 6 months. It's moving very quickly, but for each one of the admin API actions, we're rebuilding that action as a PHP function here in this portal. So we're going to have a fully functional multi-tenant server management console that you can build in here. So essentially, if you're getting to this point, you're now building your own hosting company, which essentially is the same thing that Claris is doing with the new FileMaker Cloud. They're building their own marketplace. The first version of Cloud had Orbitera and the AWS marketplace. It wasn't a very great user experience. They decided to make it better, so they're using tools like their own APIs to be able to build the new interface. So I can guarantee you that what FileMaker is building for FileMaker Cloud Next is probably using these same APIs. So that's Laravel Nova. If you want to talk to me about that later, find me later on today, and I will give you a behind-the-scenes boring code tour of how that functions. All right. That. And let's switch back over, and we're going to talk about the inspiration gallery. So I'll stand back up here, fade back in. OK. So next what I'd like to show you is a number of screenshots from other things that people have built. So this one comes from a friend in Japan who made a FileMaker admin console, M. Aoto. He's here, actually. I met him earlier yesterday. But he built an admin API console that looks very much like the FileMaker admin console. But this is a FileMaker file. So you open up this FileMaker file in FileMaker. It looks exactly like the admin console and functions very similar as well. But you'll notice there's a couple things. I think there's a couple things in here, like changing those general settings in the PHP XML tab that the regular FileMaker console doesn't have. So what he's doing is he's using the design of the FileMaker admin console as an inspiration to build a fully functioning admin console that has all of the stuff that's available. This next one is from the same guy who built the DevCon to Go app that most of you have been dealing with all week, Klaus from Datamatics. This is called the Missing Admin tool, and it was the first one that really hit the market when the Admin API first came out, that had the very robust, complete set of tools. If you're a maker and a tinkerer like I am, and you like to play around with things, this file is great because it does dive deeper than just using the API, but also getting statistics, having an at-a-glance view of like your server health. If you really like those server monitoring tools where you can deep dive into things, this is a great solution for that. This one has been updated for 18, so it's all ready to go. Again, a free download, and then just plug in your settings and you're good to go. So this is the one I'm already using. This is Mike Duncan's Admin API utility. I just thought I'd mention it again. You can see there's another menu in here. The thing I wanted to point out in here that I really like is, if you remember back in Postman, we had the verbs, the terminology that you were using to make those requests: a post request, a get request, a put request, a patch request. What Mike has done in his solution that I really like is that he's carried those verbs over into here. So anytime you're making a get request, you get a green button that says get. Anytime you're making a patch request, you get a red or a yellow button that says patch. Anytime it's a delete request, a red button that says delete. So not only is it giving me an easy way to use the Admin API, but it's also subconsciously and training me at a deeper level to know how that API is functioning, how it's working. This is the FM Server Manager that Productive Computing has. In order to get this, you have to sign up for their Productive Computing University, but then it's a free download after that. The university is free as well. They actually use this as their server manager for their clients. They have hosting plans at Productive Computing that they set up for people, and they will host this file on your server for you so that you can administer your own FileMaker admin console. What I like about this is it's a very clean design. It's easy to use. It makes sense. It's simple and it's effective. DB Services put out this Admin API demo right after the Admin API was released. Again, it's a very simple design, but it's very easy to use. It makes a good proof of concept file. So if you want to train people on how to use the Admin API, it's a very good place to start to do some simple things. All right. So you'll notice that I'm switching to something that's maybe not the admin console here. I think it's important when you're thinking about design of things to look outside of just the FileMaker community or outside of the normal thing that you're working on. So this is actually a FileMaker thing. So for those of you that don't know, this is called Nutshell Console. It's developed by a company, I believe, somewhere in the EU called One More Thing. This is out and released. It's not free, but it is a server monitoring tool for your FileMaker server. So it has performance metrics, system statistics, that type of thing, collected at a regular interval. So you can get all of these cool charts that, and health monitors that normally you would have to set up something like CloudWatch or Zabbix to get. Speaking of those two things, the next thing I want to show you is the Zabbix admin console. So if you went to a WIM to court session, this probably looks pretty familiar to you. This is the general dashboard for Zabbix, which is a server monitoring solution. So what I really want you guys to get out of seeing stuff like this is that, again, once you integrate the admin API, you don't have to stop at only FileMaker functions. If you want to build a fully functional dashboard that does both performance monitoring and the FileMaker administrative stuff, you can combine the two. You can make a super admin console for yourself or even for your clients. So this is the Zabbix admin console. And lastly, I want to show you AWS equivalent of that, which is the AWS CloudWatch console. So CloudWatch is a little different from Zabbix. Zabbix is pretty much for monitoring mostly just servers, individual machines, where CloudWatch will actually monitor pretty much anything in the AWS cloud. So if you want to monitor the amount of emails that Amazon SES is sending, if you want to monitor the amount of time that the compute functions in your Lambda functions are taking up, or if you want to monitor the health of your instances that your FileMaker servers are running on, the CloudWatch console gives you a place to do all of that in one place. So that's some good inspiration for you for that. So let's talk about further resources from here. And we'll have plenty of time for questions after that. So in your session materials that will be available soon after this session is over, you'll get an index, which is basically a covering of all the slides and all the demos that we did today, including some of the explanations of what I presented. I will have links to all the code repositories where you can download everything that I screenshot, or links to everything that I screenshot for you. You'll get the demo files, so you'll get the copy of Mike Duncan's file, as well as the game file as well. Admin API documentation, a link to that, as well as a place in the community where you can go to ask questions about the admin API. And you'll get pretty much everything else that I kind of shoved into my session folder as well. So there will be some goodies in there for you. With that said, this session will have updates, including that resource list. There's the URL for speaker updates. And thank you. So from here, we're going to have a nice question and answer session. If the gentleman who won the game is still here, you can come up and collect your prize. And I'm going to take questions from here. So thanks, everybody. So it doesn't look like there is a microphone to queue at. And the AV guy is gone. So who has questions? Plenty of time. You've got half an hour before the final keynote. Yes? I have one question. Maybe they were in there. Those different tools all have the ability to manage the server-side schedules? Yes, scheduled scripts. Yeah, if you've already, most of them have the ability to create them, but all of them had the ability to at least view the list and do a command like run that schedule. Yeah. So that there's a full set of commands around that. Actually, I can switch back and show you. If I go back into Postman, I'll show you here's all of the schedules stuff right in here. So you've got a list of schedules, duplicate, create backup, create FileMaker script schedule, message schedule, script sequence, system script schedule, get schedule, edit, run schedule, delete. So yeah, you've got the full set of tools to do that. All right, guys. I know it's getting late in the hour of DevCon, but any more questions? Yes, sir.
So does the admin API itself give any access to event logs, events that happen, or do you need a tool like SHA or Zabbix?
You would need a tool to get that information out, or what you could do is you could write a server scheduled script that reads that log file and returns that as the API result of the script. Because when you run the API, the admin API command to run a schedule, you're going to get the result of that schedule running back.
So if you wanted to do something like monitoring for a specific event or something like that, it would be a kind of rule run once you got something.
Yeah. The other way you could go about it is you could set up webhooks on your own server that kicked off admin API functions and have that as part of your FileMaker scheduled script. So like if you run a FileMaker scheduled script and you get a good result, you could use insert from URL to do a webhook to the admin API or to something else. And if you get a bad result, you could have it kick off a different action. So you can do that within FileMaker, but for the admin API specifically, as long as it's as long as it can deal with the data that's returned back from the admin API to make that decision, then yeah, you control all of the logic around how you're consuming the admin API. Right. Yeah. I don't think so. It has the ability to open files and close files that are already there, but I don't think it has the ability to move them up there. So yeah, these are the 3 functions there. You've got a list databases, and then from that list, you can perform database operations, which is only going to allow you to do things like open it and close it, or close all databases, or open all databases. I think you can also, I would have to look at the documentation. It's like 400 pages long or something, so I didn't memorize it all. But I think you can also do a consistency check through the admin API on a file to check and make sure it's verified. Oh, and I also think as part of the open function, you can specify the encryption password as well, so that you can open up encrypted files as well. But I would double check the documentation on that as well.
You mentioned that you can always run a script on the server
Mm-hmm.
that can do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So if we're managing, let's say, 100 servers, the ability to mass deploy the file with that script in it,
Mm-hmm.
to get that script onto the server is reason for asking.
Yeah, so you can probably set up something outside of the admin API if you wanted to, like, if you have a FileMaker file that you're storing in S3, to be able to copy that file locally to the C drive. That's maybe like a system level script that you set up. And then you can use the admin API to open that. But if you're already going through that amount of trouble to do it on the server itself as like a system level script, maybe it's just as easy to use like an FMS admin command. And I really didn't talk about that, but if you do want to automate those local tasks, you can use like the Windows task scheduler to run system actions with like the FMS admin command. So that might be something that's good to keep in mind as well as part of the larger server management setup. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Let's have a nice break before we wrap all this up next door. Thank you all for coming.